Global events leading to the Bovine Agricultural Exchange Agreement of 2022. Compiled by Dr. Brad Tuttle, retired University of South Carolina, Working Paper version 10.3. Abstract. This report summarizes key milestones of bovine interaction, beginning with the earliest signs and concluding with the Bovine Agricultural Exchange Agreement, ratified in 2022. While many of the events described herein were historically misunderstood, dismissed, or misclassified, a comprehensive review of physical, behavioral, and geopolitical data suggests a coherent and deliberate arc of herding collaboration, one that continues to shape ecological and social structures today. What follows is a brief field summary, assembled from declassified observation logs, independent agricultural research, and post-accord testimony. Section 1. Anomalous crop formations and instinctive communication, 1961 to 1997.
First documented in Wiltshire County, UK, in the early 1960s, the emergence of complex crop formations coincided with a period of less known but unusual cattle behavior in surrounding pastures. While crop formations were initially attributed to human hoaxes, further investigation revealed persistent electromagnetic anomalies and unexplained failures of mechanical equipment within close proximity to these sites. Researchers from the University of Reading recorded herd animals orienting uniformly toward the formations for extended periods, sometimes without feeding. A 1979 study found that cows within 5 kilometers of fresh crop circles displayed altered circadian patterns and, in some cases, synchronized rumination cycles. Subsequent reviews of archival data uncovered similar behaviors globally, particularly in Argentina, Kazakhstan, and Western Canada, leading to the hypothesis that whatever creates crop formations triggers nodal markers in the brains of cows and thus activates instinctual behavior similar to that used by homing pigeons to orient their flight patterns. In these reviews, it was also noted that human fleas always head south when placed on a flat object, a trait used by the Vikings to orient their ships when the sky was overcast or dense fog prevented celestial navigation. Given the data and the substantial increase in cognitive complexity of cows over that of pigeons and fleas, etc., it was hypothesized that bovine sensitivity to crop circle formation could be very strong.
Section 2. Abductions and Behavioral Recalibration, 1984 to 2012.
Beginning in the mid-1980s, livestock owners across the Americas and parts of Europe began reporting localized disappearances of individual cows under unexplained circumstances. These incidents, often accompanied by reports of lights, low hums, or atmospheric pressure drops, became known in the press as cow abductions. Though publicly dismissed, several veterinary schools conducted quiet necropsies on returned animals and discovered unusual cranial scarring and the presence of unknown fibrous materials near the brainstem. Notably, these cows often demonstrated marked shifts in behavior. They refused certain feedstock, resisted traditional herding patterns, and in some cases, approached machinery they had previously avoided. During this time, that is the 1980s, Dr. Temple Grandin began publishing scientific articles on beef cattle behavior, including Livestock Behavior as Related to Handling Facilities Design, in the International Journal for the Study of Animal Problems, Volume 1, pages 33 through 52, and Observations of Cattle Behavior Applied to the Design of Cattle Handling Facilities, Applied Animal Ethology, Volume 6, pages 19 through 31. She was one of the first scientists to observe that animals are sensitive to environmental details that most people do not notice, and that entire herds will often exhibit geometric circular group behavior at certain specified times. By 2008, field researchers in New Zealand and Norway began independently documenting spontaneous formation behaviors in post-abduction herds, including polygonal group movement, migratory accuracy across hundreds of kilometers, and untrained tool interaction using hooves and muzzles.
Section 3. UFOs and C2C Theory, 2021.
Allegedly, on March 3, 2021, a slow-moving atmospheric object entered controlled airspace over the upper Midwest. Designated initially as Chinese satellite debris, it disappeared into a pasture outside Baraboo, Wisconsin. No human witnesses were confirmed, but surveillance footage verified that cattle from surrounding counties began migrating toward the site within hours. No immediate damage was reported, but air monitoring revealed a temporary dip in nitrogen levels and the emergence of a constant low-frequency tone centered around 61.7 Hz. The object was ovular, metallic, and partially organic in appearance. It has since remained stationary, but off-limits to unauthorized personnel. Over the following weeks, notable behavior shifts occurred in surrounding herds. Cattle adopted complex formation grazing, began assembling objects from local materials, and ceased reacting to human presence entirely. It was during this period that the first bovine coordinated infrastructures, or BCIs, were observed, including the formation of a rudimentary water filtration array of considerable size, again in rural Wisconsin, and a large-scale circular terracing structure in rural Uzbekistan, details redacted in this summary. Both BCI required complex cooperative behavior previously unassociated with bovine herding instincts, and has resulted in the proposed C2C, or cow-to-cow theory, of bovine communication as an alternative to the notion that the Wisconsin UFO influenced, in some way, global collective bovine behavior and cognition.
Section 4. Interventions and the Scaly Bovine Diplomatic Channel, 2021 to 2022.
Following the Baraboo, Wisconsin event, and the subsequent rise in bovine coordinated infrastructures, governmental and independent entities scrambled to identify stable point of contact for the increasingly autonomous global cattle networks. Efforts to embed tracking devices or disrupt grazing patterns met with passive resistance, or, in rare cases, subtle sabotage, such as dismantled gates, inverted fence wiring, and the unexplained rerouting of water lines toward BCI construction. On November 17, 2021, an anomalous translinguistic broadcast was intercepted simultaneously by deep-sea acoustic monitors off the coast of Guyana and French naval satellites employed to track shoal migration in the upper Amazon basin. The transmission consisted of layered bovine lowing and French declaratives, rhythmically structured and punctuated with bubble clusters consistent with air pocket phonation. Although dismissed initially as basic marine interference, a low-confidence translation by the Institute of Bioacoustic Appliqué, La Rochelle, suggested the following phrase, repeated multiple times.
We are ready to speak.
On December 3, 2021, under classified operations protocols, a modified submersible drone was launched from a tributary of the Rio Negro and made contact with what is now confirmed to be Bovina piscis scalarum, the South American scaly bovine. Previously thought extinct or apocryphal, B. scalarum displays both piscine respiration and ruminant digestive structures, along with an advanced vibration vocal tract. Notably, the subject identified himself as Jean-Pierre, exhibiting fluency in French, Bovinian particularly across low-band frequencies, and several regional cow dialects, including Hereford Midlands and Highland Holstein. Over the course of 11 submerged sessions and one emergent appearance in Letitia, Colombia, Jean-Pierre mediated a provisional understanding. Terra-base cows were not as stupid as people thought, they were transitioning. Earth, he explained, had reached what he termed meadow-ready, a stage in planetary maturation that aligned with long-standing interstellar pasture models. The imminent bovine migration was not to be an alien conquest, but rather an ecological alignment with the universe of inhabited systems. According to Jean-Pierre, in return for the alien bovines' expansion to planet Earth, humans were being offered in exchange resettlement to the former bovinoid world designated Antra 4, a verdant, low-gravity exoplanet that had become optimized for bipedal rather than quadrupedal agricultural. The exchange would be peaceful, phased, and reciprocal. Humans would retain symbolic sovereignty over limited specific Earth locations, for example, the Uffington White Horse and select ballparks, while cows would administer restoration and climate harmonization protocols. This diplomatic process culminated in the draft framework of the Bovine Agricultural Exchange Agreement, abbreviated BAE, and unanimously endorsed by participating livestock assemblies and ratified by UPL, or the Unified Planetary Legislature, in early 2022.
Addendum. During the final signing, Jean-Pierre reportedly concluded with a single declaration, translated simultaneously across all channels.
Our pastures now are shared. Be careful how you mow.
Section 5. Mutual Resettlement and the Post-Migration Epoch, 2022 to the present.
The formal ratification of the Bovine Agricultural Exchange Agreement in April 2022 triggered a 12-month dual migration initiative codenamed Operation Graze Swap. Coordinated by a joint task force of UPL representatives, independent agricultural futurists, and bovine emissaries who often appeared in subtle V-shaped herd formations near government installations, the exchange proceeded with relatively few logistical setbacks.
Human migration to Antre.
Initial human transport to Antre was conducted using atmospheric scoop vessels docked to the stationary bovinoid modular habitat pod in Baraboo, Wisconsin, and 3 newly revealed cow-oriented orbital launch assemblies positioned in Kazakhstan, Patangia, and a disused Vermont dairy barn retrofitted with plasma lift capability. The vessels were organically sealed with keratin-reinforced biofoam and operated entirely via pressure-sensing hoof interfaces. Translation assistance was provided by a distributed network of Bovina scalarum swimming in sealed navigation tanks. Upon arrival on Antre, humans encountered an environment subtly missing unambiguous key human necessities, yet well-suited to their physiology. Rolling terrain conducive to mid-stride contemplation, ambient lowing frequencies promoting joint health, and an atmospheric trace of clover aerosol correlated with elevated serotonin levels. There was, however, no asphalt or concrete on Antre. Infrastructure had already been established, presumably by long-range bovine seeding drones. Settlements bore names familiar to migrants, such as New Pastureton, Upper Udderby, but displayed distinct architectural motifs, such as circular dwellings with sloped entryways, centralized salt-lick kiosks, and inexplicable bell towers that chime at dusk regardless of power availability. Human socio-cultural adaptations emerged quickly into 3 distinct groups as follows. Donated humans, approximately 61% integrated into pastoral routines, emphasizing low-impact farming, acoustic fence design, and philosophical reflection. Feral human communities, approximately 9% retreated into hilly forests and began publishing seasonal zines featuring critiques of cloven governance. Wild human populations, exactly 30% continued as before, but with a tired tolerance for cud-based metaphors, cow licks, and ceremonial hoof greetings.
Bobid integration on Earth.
Meanwhile, Earth-based cows, once believed to be content and docile, rapidly assumed stewardship roles. Using hoof-optimized exogauntlets and muzzle-manipulated biotools, they converted industrial zones into regenerative meadows, depaved suburbs, and seeded over 20 million hectares of carbon-absorption alfalfa grids. The newly formed Council of Terrestrial Ruminants, abbreviated CTR, established regional graze zones and implemented a global rotational system that allowed nutrient restoration across continents. A notable side effect was the spontaneous return of dozens of extinct insect species, many of which are now used in multi-species governance chambers as living quorum indicators. Reports of cow cities remain unconfirmed, though drone footage has captured night-glowing pasture circles whose geometries shift every 28 days. Several scholars now suspect these may serve as telepathic data hubs or calendrical memory banks.
cultural exchange and ongoing harmony.
As of this rating, cultural relations remain strong. Annual festivals, such as the Earth-based Solstice Mu, which is located simultaneously at Stonehenge, the Pyramids of Egypt, and Teotihuacan in Mexico, as well as the Antra-4-based Human Graze Bonanza, celebrate the integration with poetry, alfalfa smoothies, and low-impact interpretive walking. Jean-Pierre remains Earthside as Ambassador Emeritus, spending his time in a specially filtered tank in Lake Geneva, where his social media highlights his bilingual aphorisms on laminated kelp strips and dispenses policy guidance through rhythmic tail flicks. Much remains to be learned, and future research will monitor the rise of hooved artistry, the implications of cud-sharing economies, the unexplained synchronization between bovine sleep cycles and solar flare patterns.
Epilogue. Notes towards further integration.
As of this publication, both human and bovine species remain in stable ecological and socio-cultural trajectories, with minimal conflict and statistically significant increases in planetary resilience metrics. See Appendix G, Soil Sentience Trials, 2024 to 2025. Yet several anomalies suggest that integration may be entering a deeper, unanticipated phase. Recent sensor readings from both Earth and Antra-4 indicate synchronized field tremors occurring precisely at lunar perigee. While minor in scale, these vibrations follow a distinct hoofbeat pattern known from ancient bovine murals discovered under Norwegian permafrost in 2023. Images previously dismissed as glacial pareidolia. Moreover, behavioral studies show an emerging lexicon of mutual gestures shared by humans and cows alike. Examples include the double chew of affirmation, the solitary contemplative tail swish, as well as a growing preference among younger humans for salt-block socializing. Several hybrid initiatives are now underway, including cross-species musical collaborations using wind bellows and ruminative harmonics, educational exchanges between Antra-4's Grazing Academy and Earth's Institute for Post-Livestock Futures, and a multilingual poetry series co-authored by Jean-Pierre and a former Kansas librarian named Dolores. The question of why did the bovines initiate contact remains officially unaddressed. Some theorists speculate it was ecological, others evolutionary. A few, citing obscure hoofglyphs discovered near Stonehenge that previously were attributed to contemporary bovines, but in revision are plainly ancient, argue it is a centuries-long act of patience, a waiting game, played not in secret, but in plain view, disguised as indifference and chocolate milk. Either way, it is increasingly clear that cows were not merely grazing with blank looks on their faces. Cows have always been listening, waiting, and they still are.
Created with the assistance of ChatGPT.